initial opening. Okay. Good morning. This is the Dania Beach City Commission workshop for city manager interviews. It's Wednesday, February 13, 2019 at 9:54. Can you please call the roll?
Mayor Llewellyn.
Here.
Vice Mayor Odman.
Here.
Commissioner Brandemart.
Here.
Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner James.
Here.
City Attorney Ansbro.
Here.
Thank you.
And we have city manager interviews. Ms. Narlock.
Morning, Mayor. Morning, Commissioners. It's good to be here again. Good to see all of you. I think the last time we met, we had gone over recommended finalists for city manager position, and we had made recommendations of 5 candidates. And subsequent to that, we had several of the candidates who pulled out. And today we have one candidate who's going to be interviewing with us, Ms. Anna Garcia. And I think I've touched base with each of you to kind of give you a background of where we are now, and I felt it important that we continue to move forward, even though we had candidates that had dropped out. That said, I do have a set of questions. If you've not received them, they are the same set of questions that we used last time. I wanted to keep some consistency in this process. What I would suggest, Mayor, is that perhaps you ask the first question and then we rotate among the commissioners to ask questions. I would suggest that we go in order of the list so that we make sure we cover all the questions that are on there. But before asking the final question, which again I would suggest you ask, which is kind of a wrap-up question, I would open it up for anyone to ask questions that they need to. You need to be mindful, and I know we've talked about this before, you need to be mindful there are certain questions you cannot ask, and it's a long list of things related to race and gender and ethnicity and sexual identity, and it's a very long list. I'll be in the room, of course, should we go there. We have our city attorney here with us. Should we go there, we'll stop that conversation, but you just need to be mindful of that. We usually have an hour for interviews. I believe that because we have the time and because of probably the amount of questions we might have to ask, we're probably looking at maybe going an hour and a half. I'll be watching the clock. I will just remind you that some commissioners have had an opportunity to do one-on-one interviews with candidates, so a lot of questions that maybe you had have already been answered. But there were others who did not do, and they may have more questions. But again, if there's something that comes up later on that you learned about in your one-on-one that you'd like to share, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, I think we're just going to go down the list of questions, and then any concerns anybody has about candidate, please feel free to ask that question. And with that said, I think we're good to go. Any questions? Yes.
Yes. As far as follow-up questions, if we have a follow-up question that relates to the question that is asked, would you prefer that we ask that at the time, or do you want us to write it down and kind of circle back over it?
I would prefer you follow up at the time.
Okay,
I think that would just make it a smoother. As a matter of fact, if you do have questions and you see, that's a really good point, Commissioner, thank you. If you have questions and you see it's just a natural time to ask that question when we're going through, please do so then. And I'll also mention clarification and follow-up questions. If the candidate answers a question and you're not quite sure what was said, then please ask for clarification. That's the time to clarify it. And then certainly if they answer a question and it triggers an additional question, a follow-up question on that answer, feel free to do that too.
Commissioner Brandemart, did you have a question?
No, I have a comment to make, not a question. Okay, Renee, when you informed us, I guess you informed all of us, which was just recently, about the fact that the other candidates, because this is a candidates forum, it's not a candidate forum. And when you had mentioned it about the other 2 getting jobs and they went on with this, and I guess we're lucky because I understand Ms. Garcia also put in for Hallandale. So the thing that I'm getting at is this: I'm not at all comfortable with this hearing for the simple fact that it's a one-man race and the person would win by default. That's a hell of a way to want to take a position so important as a city manager. And I really have no questions to ask the candidate. I also asked you on the phone to poll my fellow commissioners here as to whether they felt comfortable with this. And I even asked you to take anybody to put in this race to run as a second candidate. This is not candidates' questions. This is a one-horse race, and I have no questions, and I may even leave.
Thank you,
So I
Commissioner.
want to make that statement outright, and they can do it with the four of them, do whatever they want. I know you don't vote at a workshop. I understand that, right? But I want the candidate to win fairly. This is not a win. This is something that I feel is just a farce. And I think if any of our residents in this city, if this was held at 5 o'clock, they would feel exactly the same way. Candidates has an S on the end of the word.
Mayor, if I may.
Tom, I hope you got that all down, because I want to be on record.
Go ahead, Renee.
Mayor, if I may. Commissioner, I appreciate this is not the ideal situation. We would have loved to have 5 candidates here today to interview.
2 would have been fine. Are you kidding me?
2 would have been fine, too.
I asked you to do that.
I understand, Commissioner, and my response to you was that the last directive I got from this commission was to move certain candidates forward. Those other candidates dropped out and/or took jobs elsewhere, and I have not gotten a different direction. If you want to give me a different direction today as a commission,
Let me ask you
I will be
something.
glad to do that. If I may, Commissioner, I would just like to respond to the one-horse race comment. I want to make it very clear that Ms. Garcia has competed for this job. We've had over 75 applicants for this job, and that's combined. And the fact is that she had to compete on paper with other candidates. She had to compete with me in preliminary interviews, because I did probably over 20-something interviews, preliminary interviews for your candidates before you ever saw folks, before I ever recommended anybody to you. From there have been other candidates that have applied for this job. So it's not that we don't have a comparison for her, and I don't want to single her out or anything like that. I just want to be fair to our candidates or candidate that she has competed for this job, and she is here because of that. I don't want you to feel like she's not qualified for this job or she deserves an opportunity to interview for this job. That's the only point I'm making, Commissioner, with all due respect. Thank you.
No, I do respect you, you know. Well, let me ask you something. If it was any other commissioner here that asked you on the phone to get another candidate, even because I felt more comfortable, would you have said to them, I didn't get that as a direction from a commission?
Commissioner, I would have responded the same way that I did to you, and I said until I get a different direction from the commission, I have to follow through. I could not, I think the point I was trying to make, and maybe I didn't do it very well, is that I could not on my own go out and just pull somebody in and
I
then say.
suggested someone, and I asked you to poll the commission. I suggested Jeremy Errol.
I think I didn't understand you were giving me a directive to poll the commission on that.
You do, but you didn't do it, right?
No, I did not. I did not. No, ma'am. And I apologize for that misunderstanding. And we can, and again,
That's why we're here in this situation now.
if I need to do something different, I need a different directive from the commission. And I'll be glad to do whatever I'm directed to do, Commissioner.
Sure. I'm sorry, we just had a request from our IT department that we were going to broadcast this live. Is that what? No.
I've had several messages asking why this isn't broadcast live, and I know usually
I thought it
because-
was.
Usually because we have other candidates, you don't want a candidate watching, but because it's one candidate, I feel like it should be broadcast live. So
Absolutely.
I asked Monica, and she said that was the direction that she received. But if we're more than 2 of us and we want it to be a live process and public, transparent process, I'm all for it going live.
I don't have, do we have a consensus on that? Or does anybody have an objection to it being broadcast live?
Of course, Joe and Monica can go ahead and start.
We'll check with everybody.
Okay.
Does anybody
Yeah,
have
we have a
anybody have an
consensus.
objection?
Okay.
Okay.
Monica, you can make us go live now.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
That's
Sorry.
fine.
Proceed.
Are we going to start with the mayor with the questions?
That's my recommendation. The mayor
All
asked
right.
the first question. Are you ready?
Can I address just one thing with regard to this other issue? I did speak with Renee, and I did ask Renee if there were any candidates that perhaps we overlooked that maybe we should be considering, even if not today, because obviously we want to go forward today because Ms. Garcia has taken time out of her schedule and has planned to be here. Renee flew down. It's important that I think that we definitely go forward today, but I did ask Renee if there were any other candidates that we need, that maybe we overlooked or that would be qualified that perhaps we could talk to later in the week, next week, or so forth. and Renee had indicated that the majority of them basically have already taken other jobs, that, you know, and basically reiterated what she just said to us here, that, you know, there were over 75 candidates that did apply for this job, that there were interviews that were done previously, so there is something to compare to. I do agree it would be ideal to have more people here, and unfortunately, the situation that we're in is what we are. Unfortunate or not, depending on how you look at it.
Right.
But I do think that we need to move forward with this, and if we need to address anything further when we're finished, then I think we can address it at that time. Is that fair for everybody?
Yes. Mayor, are you going to start with the
I'm going to
questions?
start with the first question.
Okay,
So,
thank you, Mayor, thank you, Commissioner.
thank you. Thank you.
Renee.
Come on up.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Good morning. Would you prefer to be recognized as Ms. Garcia or Anna? Does it matter?
Whatever's good for you, I'm good.
Okay, I tend to be on a first-name basis with people, so.
Anna's just fine then.
Good morning, Anna.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
We're just going to go through a series of questions that were already pre-prepared, and there may be follow-ups, as you heard. And I think at the end of this, there will be some additional questions that individual commissioners may have as well. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we've had an opportunity to review your resume. Can you take a few minutes to explain from your perspective how your background prepares you for this position?
Certainly. I've spent the last 9 years as a city manager, but I think what prepares me even greater than that is that I started my municipal career back in 1983 with the City of Miami Parks and Recreation. I've been competing my whole life, ever since I was 7 years old, and my father saw me with a broomstick and some lemons, and he signed me up for softball and Corey League. With that said, I've done every possible job that a city manager can do. From mowing the lawn, to changing the nets on the basketball courts, to lining the ball fields, to taking care of kids, rising all the way to becoming a city manager and leading a team of 500 employees and managing a budget of $164 million. And I've done so with impeccable audits. I've taken bad morale and I've lifted the team. And at the end of the day, everything that I've ever done has been for the greater good of the cities that I have served. I'm also a credentialed manager. Probably 1 out of every 10 city managers in the state of Florida are credentialed. I always wanted to make sure that I'm a perpetual student, but also a perpetual teacher. So I think I'm a very all-around individual. My heart is in public service and has been in public service for 30 years.
Thank you. Any follow-ups? Okay.
Anna, can you describe your leadership and talk a little bit about what your management style looks like?
Yes, absolutely, Vice Mayor. My management style is that of a coach. My foundation comes from athletics and from working in a team environment. We are only as good as our weakest link. Collectively, the sum of the parts of the team can do so much better. I have a very high bar that I set on my team, but the bar is never higher than the bar that I set on myself. One team, one mission, going in one direction for the greater good of the city, in this case, the city of Dania Beach that has tremendous potential. But I lead by example, I have a coaching style, open door policy, and I'm open from guidance, not just obviously from the mayor and the commission, but from that part-timer in Parks and Rec that may be looking at something from a different perspective.
Thank you, Anna.
Pass.
Okay. Question number 3, which is a series of bullet points. We can just go through them pretty quickly. Describe your experience in the following areas. And the first one is economic development and redevelopment.
Absolutely. The 5 years that I spent in the city of North Miami Beach, be it the former mayor or the current mayor, Anthony DiFilippo, they refer to my years as city manager as the renaissance of North Miami Beach, basically North Miami Beach was a drive-through city.
Right.
I myself had only been to the Krispy Kreme right there on 163rd Street. That's all I knew about North Miami Beach. But I knew that there was so much potential. So whether it was taking our CRA to new heights or really spreading the word via social media, all modes of communication, we let the world know that, hey, you don't have to drive past North Miami Beach to get to Aventura or to Sunny Isles. There's a great place here that's diverse, that's right for development and redevelopment, so invest. And we were very successful at doing so.
Did your CRA have a TIF, or was it TIF-less?
No, we had a TIF.
Okay. As far as budgeting and financial management goes, how, at this time when we're always thinking about the budget, how would you approach the budget process now, so early in the year?
I take great pride in the budget. My father was born in 1917. He's passed a while ago, but he's still with me. So he grew up during the Great Depression. I've always, be it because I came up in Parks and Recreation, and that was the budget that always got cut. You couldn't cut police, your garbage had to be picked up. So you really had to think outside the box. And not just as my years as an athlete, selling donuts or bagels before school, but also as a manager. I started my manager career in 2009, in the height of the second greatest depression that our country has ever experienced. So innovative thinking, thinking outside the box, and always keeping an eye on the bottom line. I've never once had to raise taxes, but I never once had to lower the bar in the services that I would deliver to my residents.
Okay, thank you. The next one is, based on what you know about Dania Beach right now and what you see as the thriving economy in South Florida, as far as a strategic plan and visioning, give me just a brief snapshot of what your vision would be for Dania Beach in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, there's tremendous potential here. Tremendous potential from west of 95 to Dania Point, all the way to the beach. I think that this is like a little secret here. I know people like Patty and Mimi know the true potential of the city, the residents that I've met today. But taking a look at the city from where I grew up, coming in the 70s, coming to the pier and going to the beach, the opportunities here are endless. The diversity of this town, the rich history. But our best years are definitely ahead of us.
Yeah, I think it's a very, probably the most transformational time in Dania Beach's history is going on right now. So if we go on to the next one, which is capital improvements, how do you quantify capital improvements, and where do you start?
I think we need to spend several Saturdays together, rolling up our sleeves and really coming up with a strategic plan. To me, the strategic plan is our playbook. I'm very proactive, but I've seen a lot of cities be reactive. I think we need to have a game plan, and we need to go in that direction. And everything that we do, from the budgets we prepare to when we go to Tallahassee every year, I have spent 20 years, 4 different municipalities, seizing over $50 million by being aggressive and not leaving any stone unturned. But we need to get the word out to investors and developers. There's a tremendous opportunity here all over the city, including in our CRA.
Right.
I have a follow-up for that.
Okay.
How would you prioritize these capital improvements? Because as you know, we have a different mayor every 2 years. Faces change up here every 2 years. And what may be a priority to me may not be a priority to the current mayor. And she may start on something that we all can agree that is a priority for the city, but when there's a new mayor, that might not be the priority for them. So how are you going to manage these capital improvement projects and make sure that if it's something that we have started on from a commission, if it's a priority for the city, that you relay that in a way so that we understand that these are priorities of the cities, not just the individuals, and how would you manage those priorities?
I think that's a very good question, and I think we need to look at the city not from an individual perspective, but from a global, unselfish perspective. And again, going back to adopting the plan. But adopting a plan is not a plan that you adopt and then you just put it on the shelf. It's a plan that every 2 years you bring it out. And do we still want to do this? Or do we want to shift in priorities? But as I look at Dania Beach, I look at a grid from public works, from signage, from our streets, from landscaping, from beautification to economic development. But I think globally, if we are just following the direction of one person rather than the sum of the parts and the whole of the commission, we're not going to be proactive. So I think adopting a strategic plan that gets adjusted ever so slightly, but that will continue to follow the global vision.
The next bullet point was regarding coastal management. As the importance of sea level rise comes into the future, I think I heard from one of the other Broward County commissioners that every waterway, every canal, every waterfront property in South Florida basically is going to have to start to raise their seawalls and everything over the next 5 to 10 years. And coastal management regarding working with the Army Corps of Engineers. How did you manage the coastal cities where you worked before?
I think where I started my career in Miami Beach back in the 80s, but leading to North Miami Beach, everything that we were doing in regards to code, in regards to building, in regards to zoning, was having the foresight for future challenges. And even everything that we did in public works in regards to trimming the trees and getting ready for hurricane season and cleaning our drains, it's a multitude of things that we need to do to prepare to be proactive. But I think being a professional city manager, every year I am committed to attending the national conference. And even last year, I out of my own pocket, I sponsored myself to go. But I think from our public works director to our economic development director, you know, all of us, I think we need to continue to be in the cutting edge to see what's out there in regards to solar, in regards to drainage management, in regards to everything that we need to do to be able to protect our city.
I have a little bit of a follow-up to that. So the city doesn't really have any kind of functional climate change action plan. Do you feel that as a coastal city that we have some sort of moral obligation to develop one and to really have that be part of our in-house culture, that that's something we're going to put on the forefront? Or do you think it's something that we just sort of along the way as we go with certain projects, you know, try and build that in?
I think it could be a hybrid. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think we need to work very closely with our, you know, neighbors, be it in Broward County or Northeast Miami-Dade County. There are already a lot of things that are in play. I think that we need to continue to perfect what we're doing and work together, make sure that we tap into federal dollars. We can never leave any stone unturned in regards to seeking knowledge, seeking education, but also seeking funding, and continue to be involved with all entities that can help us and all municipalities that can help us.
I have a brief follow-up to that as well. In your experience as city manager in North Miami Beach or other locations that you've worked in Parks and Rec and other things, have you had experience with making a city or progressing a city into being a more green environment overall? Absolutely.
When we partner with Waste Management, one of the things that we did, we were able to realize $2 million in saving, and we actually doubled our recycling efforts. A lot of people, one time a week was not enough. So we put together a pilot program that turned out to be very good. So there were opportunities for enhanced recycling. We planted over 1,000 trees in North Miami Beach. We work closely with FPL. What we can get, what our residents can get, not just from aesthetics, but lowered air condition bills from something as simple as planting trees. So there's a lot of opportunities that we seized, and I think that's the most important thing for Dania Beach, that we seize every single opportunity that benefits us, not just in that area, but in all areas of municipal services.
Thank you.
The last bullet point is something that's close to our hearts up here is affordable housing. How did you manage the affordable housing and workforce housing projects in your city?
We want to be able to be that city that we serve all people. And one of the things that we're seeing is that young people are graduating from college and have to go back home, or the elderly have to not just downside, but go to a home. And I think that we need to be, very much on the cutting edge of working with our developers in regards to workforce housing. We should be able to have a place where everybody can live, and not just rent, but have home ownership. And I think that if we get that word out to developers and investors, it's extremely important that we do that. And that's something that we did in North Miami Beach. We wanted to make sure that there was investors, not just on the east side, but also on the west side. And I think having incentives in place for workforce housing and for housing, for student housing. People no longer need to live in 2,000 square feet. In New York City, people live comfortably in 700 square feet. My mom still lives in the same house since 1969 that we all grew up in 650 square feet.
Okay, and then one more bullet point about affordable housing. I mean, when I went to the task force committee meeting, they talked about other housing sources or other housing types that you may have seen on HGTV or something like that. Tiny homes, container homes, sustainable homes, stackable homes, poured walled homes. That from my perspective, I think everybody deserves to have a home where they can hang their pictures on the wall. That's the way I look at it, and a safe place to stay in a storm. So would you be willing to look at other affordable housing types?
I would be looking to not leave any stone unturned.
Okay.
I think that we also need to work with Habitat for Humanity. We were very successful in the city of South Miami partnering with Habitat for Humanity. I'm a big fan of HGTV. I think we can make trailer parks really look amazing. I mean, tiny homes, studio apartments. I think that there's tremendous opportunity to really have diversity in housing as we have diversity in our people.
Thank you.
Hi. What would we learn about you if we contacted a cross-section of citizens, residents, supporters, detractors, and community organizations? And I also want you, because it would be part of my follow-up question, I also want you to address your relationship with the employees, past employees, especially regarding the union.
Absolutely. I started as a union employee. My first two jobs with the city of Miami and the city of Miami Beach were jobs that were classified under union. My parents also spent 20-plus years working in factories. What people would say about me is Anna is very passionate, very honest. She will never compromise her integrity. They will never want to find out. They will never say, I wonder what Anna's thinking, or I wonder what Anna would want from us. I like to win, and I want our teams to win. I'm very open in regards to having that dialogue with my people and with my team. And I raise the bar on them, but that's because I invest in them. I give them the tools, I give them the resources. And that's what we did in North Miami Beach. We had, when I first became the city manager, our police department was really in shambles. Our crime was high, and our morale was low. They hadn't been able to come to the table with a police union contract. Long story short, I negotiated in good faith. And that's really, really important when you're negotiating, that both parties are negotiating in good faith. Long story short, we were able to pass by a unanimous vote of the mayor and commission a union contract that was supported by 90% of our police union members. But we were able to still achieve pension reform. So balancing being financially responsible, balancing that we want to not just keep our best employees, but recruit the best employees. So that was a really challenging situation that I walked into, but we were able to resolve it. We also have to discipline employees, you know. You're going to make a lot of fans along the way, and there's going to be a couple of people that are going to say, you know, maybe Anna was a little too tough. But I stand here in front of all of you, all that are watching, my dad that always watches me, and there's nothing that I would have not brought forward in the past 21 years of senior leadership. Every single item that I brought forward to the commission and everything that I recommended was always for the greater good of the team.
Can you speak a little bit on outsourcing a department? Because that is a growing concern when you speak with different people around City Hall and outside of City Hall. Most are employees that are a part of a union, and whenever you hear that someone has privatized a section of the city, it's a growing concern, and quite frankly, it's a concern of mine because we have a lot of employees that have invested a lot of time here, and they want to grow with the city, and they want to have room and opportunity, anyone that gets a job here. And so just to make it clear for everyone, because depending on who you talk to, and I know, and everyone else knows that depending on who you talk to, they can either say great things about you or they can say bad things about you. But could you please just go through and state what happened, if it was your idea or if it was the will of the commission that you carried out?
Thank you for asking me that question. So this is the adopted strategic plan for the mayor and council. Our first strategic plan was adopted within my first year as city manager, 2014. And the policy agenda of the mayor and commission that was passed unanimously by a 7-0 vote had the water master plan development. Excuse me, I'm looking at 2017. 2014, one of their top priorities was solid waste. So it was a directive of the mayor and commission to take a look at our operations for solid waste, to take a look at our operations for our utility. That was top priority, high priority for the mayor and commission. But I will tell you something in regards to the employees, because I have been there and my parents have been there. We made sure that when we put the request for proposals, that we sent the message, be it Waste Management or Waste Pro, to every single one of those private companies that were submitting, that they had to keep the employees. We didn't want the employees to lose their job. So not only did we put that into the RFP, we agreed on it and we put it in the contract as mandatory. We were able to save a considerable amount of money by outsourcing to Waste Management. But a lot of the employees ended up staying with us because with the savings, we started the NNB team, which was the Neighborhood Maintenance and Beautification. So out of the 22 employees, we ended up keeping 12, and the majority of them went on to Waste Management. But it was a directive of the mayor and council in regards to providing the best services in the most cost-effective manner.
How would you establish credibility and build trust with the elected officials, residents, and staff upon arrival as a new city manager? And obviously, that may be different for each category, so if you'd explain.
I think trust is something that comes with time. But I also think trust comes when you look at somebody's trajectory, when you look at somebody's career. Whether you're talking to my neighbor next door or across the street or that teenager that I coached when I was back in the city of Miami Beach, who's now the Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation for the city of Miami Beach. That's something that you will see as we establish that open door policy, as you spend time with me, as you see my level of commitment, as you see my passion, as you see my ownership, as you see me rolling up my sleeves. like I've done before a hurricane to prepare alongside my team or after a hurricane. I'm just as comfortable in the halls of Tallahassee as I am sitting at City Hall, as I am walking about through the entire city, as I am picking up a chainsaw and making sure that we're clearing streets and that we're taking care of our parks. So trust will come in time, but it also is something that is part of my trajectory in my career.
So fair to say you would have an open door policy to not just the elected officials, but also to residents if they had questions and that sort of thing?
Oh, without a doubt. I have many residents that have me on speed dial. And I am no resident going back to the city of South Miami, where I started my professional career, or Palmetto Bay, or Biscayne Park, or Palmetto Bay, or North Miami Beach will ever say, wow, we called Anna and she wasn't responsive. After Hurricane Irma, when we had so many thousands of people without electricity, and I myself didn't have electricity for 3 weeks, they could pick up the phone because they had my private cell number. And I call Aletha Player from Florida Power and Light 20 times a day if I had to, until my last resident had electricity. Those are some of the testimonials that you'll be able to get from me.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up, sorry.
ahead.
How is your relationship with the employees? How engaged are you with the employees? I would want to know, at your last city or your last cities, when you walk through, do you know your employees by name? Do you know them more than just working in Parks and Rec or working for, our public services? Do you know if something's going on in their family? Are they comfortable enough to engage in a conversation with you and in confidentiality?
Without a doubt, absolutely. Remember, I started at the bottom of the totem pole, and my mom always tells me, don't ever forget where you come from. I just met Patty and me. I am never going to forget their names, and I associate Patty with my sister, Patricia, in regards, the same thing I do with my employees. I know if they're not having a good day, and I'll give you an example. Nicholas Williams, he's a full-time employee of the city of North Miami Beach. He started with us as an intern. I don't just walk by an employee and say, hey, how you doing? I stop and say, hey, how are you? And I can tell, even when they're telling me okay, I would tell them, just okay? Come here, let's talk. Manager, no, you're busy. No, I'm not too busy for my people. And whether it's remembering their birthday, or if they told me that their mom was having surgery, hey, how's your mom doing from the surgery? That's the way I was raised, and that's the way I am. But I also have to tell them, you dropped the ball, and we have to make sure that this never happens again. So I have very, very good relationships with my people, with my team, from that part-timer in Parks and Rec all the way up to the mayor and you all.
How do you encourage, motivate, and develop your staff? And second to that, what ways have you found to promote morale within the organization?
Absolutely. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look at this booklet that I've prepared for you, but it touches all areas of municipal government. And one of the areas that I'm most proud of is human resources. The man in the arena. I remember being in a meeting, Miami-Dade County Legal Cities. Representative McGee was the guest speaker. He's there in one of the photos with me. And he talked about the man in the arena, that it's easy to critique, but it's those people that are laboring every day and sweating bullets that we need to take a look at what they're doing. And I started the Manager's 5-Star Award. I want to make sure that we were able to recognize outstanding performance. We were able to get it all sponsored. It didn't cost the taxpayers a cent. But I was serving them lunch. I had an apron, and I was serving them lunch, and we were recognizing people from every single department. And I think just like you have to reprimand an employee, you also have to reward them, and you have to motivate, and you have to invest in them. The greatest investment that anybody can make is in human capital. I cannot fulfill my job as a city manager and a great city manager if I am not able to motivate the team and bring them up. But I'm that type of leader that motivates the team, brings the whole team up, and gets us all going in the right direction.
It's about employees. I'm not following their agenda things here. I don't care about what they got. I got it memorized, and I've taken a lot of notes, as you could see. Anna, how do you feel about hiring family members to work in the city? Like, say, a person is a commissioner, and my brother wants a job. How do you feel about that?
Well, you hire the best person for the job. It's like a team.
So you're for hiring family members?
I'm not for or against.
Well, you got to be either or.
Well, no, I prefer not to practice anything that's aligned with nepotism. But sometimes you'll go into a city and there's some things that you inherit and some individuals that you inherit.
Right.
But I don't believe it's the best practice to hire family members. But I also need to look at people from a very global perspective, that they don't report to me.
I like your answer. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
In the past few years, what has been your most difficult management decision? In describing this example, please give us an idea of the alternatives and the options that you analyzed before making the decision.
Without a doubt, it was outsourcing sanitation. You know, you don't want to see people lose their job. But I didn't settle that because the elected officials wanted to outsource. I looked outside the box, and we made sure that we put in the request for proposal and also in the contract that employees were able to keep their jobs. But at the same time, one of the greatest challenges was one of the biggest rewards. When you have the testimony of an employee that at first had a fear about joining Waste Management, who several months later after he started, Mr. Ritchie came back and in a public meeting said, we should have done this earlier because I am doing great in the private sector and there's great opportunities for me. So the greatest challenge also became the greatest reward.
Hi, with continuing fiscal constraints, how would you recommend the city commission, city manager, and staff deal with increased demands for services?
I think we need to not ever be penny wise and pound foolish. I think that there's a big difference between spending and investing. I think that if we want to be that premier city that attracts the best employees, that allows me as your head coach, as your city manager, to keep the best employees, if we're also going to attract people to invest in our city, well, we need to be the safest that we could be, and we need to be the most beautiful city that we can be. So we need to be proactive. If we need more people in one department, we need to look at our budget and make those adjustments. If we want our parents to feel like their kids are safe in our Parks and Recreation department, we want to make sure that we're paying the right salaries for those jobs. And it can be done. You can balance. There are areas that we can cut, but there are areas that we're going to need to increase. But never when it comes to human capital, never when it comes to jeopardizing, if you guys want to be the safest, most beautiful city where we're attracting not just employees, but people to live and people to invest.
So a follow-up for that, am I hearing you clearly when you are saying kind of you get what you pay for and you don't mind investing in something when you want to see a great result?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Okay. Thank you.
In managing your current workload and projects, what performance improvements could you make personally?
It's very difficult for me to relax. I mean, when I'm home, I got to be fixing a drawer or the closet. I'm very detail-oriented, and I have a lot of energy, and I'm grateful to God that at 57 years young, I have a lot of energy. But I think that comes from the foundation that my parents were always working, not just Monday through Friday, but on the weekends, they would work at the flea market. So for me is trying to find that personal balance. And I'm achieving that because I travel. I believe that if you're going to perform, you don't have basketball season year-round, and you don't have football season year-round. I believe that you have to vacation. I believe that you have to maintain yourself like you maintain your vehicle. So that's what I continue to work towards, to have that work-life balance.
Anna, can you describe the ideal relationship between the city commissioner and the city manager, as well as the city commission and the staff?
When I arrived at the city of North Miami Beach, I established first and foremost what my motto was going to be for my team and for my employees. And that was RISE, which stands for Respect, Integrity, Service, Excellence. I think that there needs to be mutual respect. I think respect is a two-way street. And I think that once there's an understanding or an acceptance, hey, let's respect each other as people, as an adults. And I think that respect is the foundation of any relationship. Respect that leads to trust, integrity, but I would have to say that respect is something that needs to occur with us and with me and employees, two-way street type of thing.
I have a follow-up. With regard to the relationship between city commission and staff, what is your take on the city commission's role with regard to dealing with staff issues?
Pardon me. I'm a big follower of game plans, and I'm a big follower of the charter. If not, we're all over the place, and we don't get anywhere. I think that but I also cannot be one person that you always call. What I established in the city of North Miami Beach, all my direct reports were able to communicate to the mayor and council. If you're driving and you see a pothole in the street, or if Commissioner James is driving and a tree limb is down, I have no problem. I encourage it because we can never have enough eyes and ears. Pick up the phone, call the public works, director. If there's an issue at one of the parks because our basketball nets have not been changed, pick up the phone and call the Parks and Recreation director. And I think that's important. But I also want to know that you called them and what was your concern.
Question. So you, like, every time a commissioner calls a department head, for the department head to come back and report to you about the conversation that was had?
I have weekly team meetings. It's very, very important, whether it be our CRA director, Parks and Rec. We have weekly meetings where I don't just speak, but I listen to them. And they go over their notes. By the way, I just wanted to let you know, Commissioner James called me, and she had a concern about this, because maybe how they resolved it, we could even do it better, or maybe there's some preventive things that need to happen. But that's just for me to know, not because I need to know, but because I should know, because maybe there'd be less calls if we're able to take care of that issue. Rather than be reactive, I want to make sure that I'm leading a team that's proactive.
Sure. I think in the past, the culture has it's been very difficult to have one-on-ones with department heads because I don't know how to say this. They've been very concerned about what they can say to a commissioner and what they can't. So the conversation has not always been authentic. and kind of pointless for me to call a department head. It had nothing to do with maybe an employee or anything like that, but it was almost as if they were coached before you came in and had a conversation with them that really could have been about a pothole or a tree or a violation or whatever it was, but kind of the fear that some department heads had for even speaking to a commissioner. It was like, wait a minute, I can't talk to you. Wait, I have to go tell the city manager. And in the end, you don't really resolve the issue that you really called about. You start dealing with an issue that, about that and not about the culture and not about the issue.
We don't ever want to cultivate a culture of fear. We want to cultivate a culture of trust. Trust is the most important thing in the world. And once that trust is established, everybody starts with trust. Now, they could lose it. So to me, I don't have any problem if you need to communicate with any of my direct reports. And I think it's just about trust. But I also believe that if any of my direct reports have an issue with me, discuss it with me first. Just a normal, expected type of relationship that it's a win-win for all of us as a team.
Commissioner Brandemarty, did you want to ask the next question?
Anna, can you please speak on your departure from your other job?
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
dying to hear about it. And yes, I did read your entire report.
Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure that you all had it and you had it in the same
I
format.
read it all, and on your integrity and those steps. I read it all.
Thank you. I appreciate that because time is the greatest gift that you can give anybody.
Right.
So I appreciate your time. So there was a drastic change in leadership in the city of North Miami Beach, a drastic change in leadership. And I had a conversation with my family. I had a conversation with myself. I had a conversation with the gentleman upstairs. And I listened to my heart and soul. And I began to apply in other municipalities because to me, it's all about chemistry. And when we lose that, then it's gone. So I was very honest. I did tell the entire commission that I had applied. And we ended up agreeing on mutually for us to separate. But before anything happened, I did what I had to do for the best interest of me and my family. One of the reasons that I'm here is because of how respectful you are with each other. I watch your meetings.
I don't know. You must be watching a different city.
I don't know what meeting you don't watch. You watched the recent one?
different.
Last night was a great meeting to watch.
Wait, I watched last night.
Okay. Well,
But-
speak from last night.
But you guys, I will tell you,
We gotta be real.
Wait, what I have witnessed in other cities is nothing. I mean, you guys just got elected in November. It's like the team. It's like Miami Heat didn't win that first year with LeBron because it takes time to come together. But if the team is genuine, we can have disagreements without being disagreeable. And I think at the end of the day, everyone here wants what's in the best interest of Dania Beach. But again, I think that the manager also serves as a bridge. You can either throw fuel in the fire or you could say, Commissioner Brandemart, how about if we do this, even though Vice Mayor Oddman wants to do this? And I think what I've learned through my life is what can we do to overcome some of the challenges we face? Maybe it's a retreat. Maybe it's saying, hey, some of these things that you say or do are affecting me. And because maybe you say things and you don't know that somebody else is being offended. But I think in every relationship, you have to work at it. I've been with my partner for 21 years. And it's not always easy, but at the end of the day, if that foundation is there, then you can overcome anything. Nobody ever wrote anything about smooth sailing. Overcoming challenges and dealing with challenges is what our character is made of. But I see good hearts in you guys. That's just what I see.
I have a follow-up for your comment. I don't even remember the question, but for the comments. Can you give me, you sound like a person, obviously, that comes from a sports type of background, so I can relate a lot to what I hear you say. Can you speak a little bit on team building within departments, within the entire city, with your employees, and team building within a commission? Because what I can tell you is that, no, we don't always respect each other, and this has been a rough, rocky road. I was very impressed about our meeting last night with all of us. I'm sure none of us went home and had 5 drinks like we do other nights when we leave this dais. Let's just be honest here. However, I do think that a key component that may be missing, and you said like team building or retreats or whatever it is, we don't really deal with each other like that outside of here. And whatever perceptions we may have of each other, they kind of fester. And it kind of rolls over to the next meeting. And I may not be willing to, like in the first thought, like you're saying team building, I'm like, I ain't going nowhere with them. You know, that's in my honest first thought. But if I'm really looking at growing together and doing what's in the best interest of the city and representing the city in the best way possible, I would go. And because it's, you may never know. Like, I may be best friends with the next person up here, and you just, a small misunderstanding with some type of coaching and guidance from someone else. So I want to know, what is your experience on team building in departments as well? Because it's very important, and it's something that's lacking here.
Well, first of all, I appreciate your genuineness. Every family has challenges and issues and even some levels of dysfunction. And I think pretending that it doesn't exist, the first step into fixing something is to acknowledge that there are pieces that may be broken. And I think that's very, very, very important. And you have to be honest with that communication. And you also need to invest time in a relationship. For some reason, you all are here together. And I think that the minute that you think, well, it's their fault, no, we have to look in the mirror every day at whatever age we are. You know, in October, I'm going to be 58. And I'm still looking, I'm saying, Anna, what areas can I adjust? My mom, who's turning 85, June 10th, she still tells me, Anna, you need to look within yourself and rise above. Going back to my rise, how can we rise above? Take ourselves and check our egos at the door and say, I'm willing to invest time so that we can work together for the greater good of Dania Beach. But yeah, to me, investing in team building, that's something. When I came on board, the budget was almost done, and I said, Mayor and Commission, we need to put money in the budget for a strategic plan. We did it with the Mayor and Commission. We had fun. We laughed. Relationships forged that would have never have forged. And I did it with my team as well, and I recommend it all the time. I see sports teams do it. I see great organizations do it. So why shouldn't we as cities do it? Thank you.
Commissioner Harris.
I know you've done your homework because you told me when we met last week. From your vantage point, where or what do you perceive the opportunities and the challenges facing the city of Dania Beach now and in the future?
The opportunities are everywhere. I spend some time at the beach. I observe a lot because I'm really into details. And I talk to people, just regular people that I meet. Gentleman that was here on the bench on a Sunday a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to him. we need to start with the details. There's no reason if we have beach volleyball at the beach and there's supposed to be 2 nets, there's only 1 net and that the net is saggy. And the other 2 are just 2 poles sitting there and people are waiting around. I think that we need to look department by department how we can better train our people. We want to have as many eyes and ears out there. We have a tremendous geographic location in this city. I just left out of the Port of Everglades on this Girls Weekend cruise with Oprah. I have to tell you about that. Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was just an amazing, amazing experience. But here we are, we can throw a softball, and it lands at the airport, or it lands at Port Everglades. I think we need to come to the table and meet with the cruise lines. I think that we need to, really look into public-private partnerships. That's something that we did. We need to look at our level of schools. Should we be partnering with other entities for another opportunity in education? Art in public places. We have a mural in one of our basketball courts. People say, oh, Anna, they're going to graffiti it. Let me tell you, you'd be surprised if you invest in parks and you tell kids, hey, we need you to take care of this basketball court or else we're not going to be able to put no money in there. And if you get down and you talk to those people at that level, they become ambassadors. But everywhere I turn, there's opportunities. Whether I'm coming from 595 or whether I'm coming from I-95, I don't want to exit in my first sight of the city because you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. I don't want to see a grocery cart on the median on a Sunday and then come back on a Thursday and see it again. And I think that's what I bring to the city, this level of details that we're always looking all over the place. From this bar behind me, where it's peeling, to those volleyball nets, to working with the investors, to getting the word out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those are all really good points because, you seem very results oriented. It's the little things that I think make a big difference. From, somebody's car in the yard without a license tag on it, or illegally parked cars, or somebody with a container in their backyard that doesn't belong there. So the more eyes that we have on the street, the better it is. So I get that part of it, I really do.
And trained eyes, Commissioner, trained eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We could work with waste management that the team is not just picking up garbage, but they're trained to be able to see if Mrs. Jones, if there's some van parked in front of their house that doesn't belong there. And I think that you would be surprised how many employees really like to be cross-trained and appreciate that. That they're not just picking up garbage, but hey, you're riding up in that big truck. You're the eyes and ears. And I've done that with other cities.
Describe your approach to ethics in the workplace, and in addition, describe a situation where you felt pressure to compromise your integrity and how you dealt with that.
Never. That can never happen. I can't take 30 years and work so hard, and then all of a sudden, one compromise leads to your total reputation going down the drain. First and foremost, I can't do it to this country. Being an American citizen was one of the most happiest days of my life. But I kind of believe that my father sees me, and that is one of the most honest individuals I've ever met. I can never, ever compromise my principles. From that time, that I was up in the tennis courts, and somebody would say, hey, here's $10 if you keep the lights on a little longer, or let us, the ball fields. It's come my way ever since I was a kid and I was poor. But the minute that you compromise that, that's a minute you can't sleep at night. And I love to be able to put my head on my pillow and be able to sleep at night. I can never compromise my ethics or my principles. Not only, if I'm blessed to be your next city manager, I take an oath to Dana Beach, but I've already taken an oath to this country. I've already taken an oath to the International City Managers organization. I have so many layers of standards and ethics that I can never compromise myself. It's not worth it.
What about ethics between departments and their employees and departments and people that are outside of the city or residents that are always in the business of the departments and always giving their opinions and emails and suggestions? What about those types of ethics?
Again, it goes back to training. It goes back to leadership. My first 90 days, should I be your next city manager, is having those conversations. But if I'm having a conversation with our Parks and Recreation director, I want him to tell me where is he at in his career in regards to ethics, in regards to being involved with the National Recreation and Parks Association, the State Parks Association. But we need to train those employees that I answer to you. You answer to your residents, and it's a trickle-down effect. But this is the game plan that we can't just drop one thing to go pick up and do a favor over here, because then we're all over the place. We need to follow the game plan, and that game plan needs to be followed with the highest standards and the highest ethics, and that needs to come through training and through professional development.
It looks like question 13 is the same as question 9, so I'm going to skip over it. By the end of the first 90 days and first year, what would you expect to have accomplished as the new city manager of Dania Beach?
The first 90 days are critical. The first 90 days are extremely critical, and I discussed it briefly. The first 90 days is a lot of observation and a lot of listening, because I am going to have to make a lot of decisions that eventually are going to lead into our fiscal year 2020 budget. So everything is going to be aligned with what you would like for the city, our collective mission and vision for the city, our preparation for Super Bowl 2020. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting with Rodney Barreto, paid out of it with my own money, Chamber South at the Wasco Center at the University of Miami. He is the chairman of the Super Bowl committee. So you have to be one step ahead. Hey, how can we get those players that grew up in this area, that played in the NFL? How can we work with our local investors, our local restaurants, our local hotels? So there's a lot going on, not just during those 90 days, but beyond. Proactive efforts to always be looking one step ahead. But it's an exciting time as well, too.
But you're thinking beyond just 90 days. You're looking into the future.
Without a doubt. I always do.
Okay. Are there any follow-ups to that?
Yes. I hear you when you say you're going to be doing a lot of looking and listening in the first 90 days. What statements are you coming to set in those first 90 days? Like, look, there's a new sheriff in town. These are our standards, and this is how we kind of, because my feelings on it, you kind of remind me of my basketball coach when I became a senior at the University of Miami. We were used to a different system, and it wasn't working, and hence the change came. And she came in with like a book like this of rules, like you have to wear knee pads, you have to say this or say it. And I'm like, I'm not doing all this. How are you going to get the staff to buy into a program? Because coming from a place of athletics, I really understand that it doesn't matter how great your ideas are. It doesn't matter how much knowledge you have, and how much experience you have. If you can't get the team to buy into your system, you're not going to succeed. And so how do you plan on, number one, making a statement of who you are and what you represent, and getting that buy-in from the different departments and the different employees and even this commission up here to say, you know what, this might not be how you typically do it, but I need you to give me a chance. I need you to understand that this is an investment and at least be open to that opportunity, because this is a city where there is a lot of resistance from change. There's a lot of resistance from being uncomfortable, and we all know that nothing great comes from comfort zones. And so how do you plan on making that statement within those first 90 days and not just looking and listening?
That is an amazing question. And I think when we look at not just Dania Beach, but South Florida, let's look at the Miami Dolphins. They spent X amount of years with respectfully, Coach Gase, bye. But they made a commitment to a new coach, and they tapped into Brian Flores because they saw that he was a winner and what he did with New England. And I know that we don't like New England because they beat the Dolphins all the time and they win a lot of Super Bowls. But at the end of the day, as your manager and as your head coach, I always come to every city with a basic foundation that comes from the discipline of sports. We want to move this city forward. We want to look at every service that we provide, and we want to see if we can provide those services better. I'm going to talk to the employees and let them know that we're going to invest in you. But at the end of the day, if people don't rise under Ana Garcia, they can't rise under anyone. I've been very, very lucky to have great coaches and mentors and parents that discipline me. But we will make sure that we are investing in our people. And once you invest in people and you take the time, like I explained to Commissioner Brandemart, that when you give people time and you invest in them and you want to know what are the challenges that they're facing, and I live it with them and I see it with them and I love it with them, like your logo says, that they'll be able to follow in the right direction if they really have a passion for what they do and for doing it to the best of their ability. And some people will be able to follow. Just like I follow, I lead. Same here. And there'll be some people that have been accustomed to not giving their full effort, and those people won't make it. If I am going to give you 100% of myself, and I always do, I expect that from my employees as well. So we can together win. And if we win collectively, then Dania Beach wins, and you win, and all our residents win.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Actually,
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Harris had his light on.
I just wanted to mention that one of the things I would like to see as a new manager would be that you sit down and spend 5-10 minutes with every employee and try to encourage them, to do better. And this is like, there's a new, like Tamara said, there's a new sheriff in town because I want all of our employees to be representative of our brand, with the proper uniforms, and, they're basically our ambassadors on the street. And human nature is that people don't really like the way things are, but they don't like change either. So we have to kind of a balance, happy medium. But we want everybody to feel valued and encouraged, because I think we can get the most out of the people that we have with a team leader that I perceive you to be immediately. And those are just one of the things I see. And from just talking to you, it seems like you'd be willing to really willing to do that immediately within the first 90 days. I think it's accountable, because one time for myself is I went over to Public Services and I wanted to tour the water plant, and people over there told me, said, "Wow, there's never been an elected official over here before. What are you doing over here?" And I said, "Well, I came to see the water plant. I went up and saw how they stirred the tanks and all that, and it was it was very interesting." And then with their support and their basic kindness towards me, that it was after a few days after Hurricane Irma, that we had one restaurant in town that was open to get pizza, and I put 20 pizzas in the back of my car, and I went over there and I gave everybody lunch to thank them, because they really pitched in, as we know, because we were out there bagging sand too with them. So I think that is key, is our people, our strength.
And they're never going to forget that, Commissioner. And I think what helps me is that I started where they're at. So I just didn't just graduate from college and just get a fancy job. I came up and did what they're doing. So there are certain things that are not broken that we can only make better. And there are going to be things that are broken that we really need to fix and ensure that they don't break again. But I think that kindness of stopping and giving a bottle of Gatorade or bringing water I remember when I was a rec leader, and I would get so excited whenever the department director, imagine if the mayor or commissioner went by, and I wanted to see them, and I wanted them to see my locker rooms and how clean they were, and I wanted them to see how straight my lines were. So, yeah, I'm going to be that manager that spent times, at the park and with our public work guys, riding with them, getting to see what they do. Because unless you're with them, you don't know their working conditions, how their vehicle is, how their tools are, what they need, and how can we invest in them.
Vice Mayor?
Anna, I absolutely love your energy, and I love your leadership, and I really think the RISE standards that you talk about are fantastic. That said, how do you address that when we're setting this bar high for yourself, for the commission, for the employees, there are employees who have not had access to the resources and the training that they should have had for years, and they wanted it and they didn't get it. So how do we expect excellence from them when they haven't had that for years? They haven't had the training. I mean, do we just cut them loose right away because in 90 days, after years of being here, they haven't had the training and they haven't had the resources? They haven't had what they needed to become excellent. Or how do we bring them up? How do we get them to that point? What does that look like to you?
Dealing with those challenges are challenges that I've dealt from the minute that I became Parks Director back in the city of South Miami, where I grew up. I mean, on the other side of the tracks, not actually in the city, but in unincorporated Dade County. I encountered that very early on in my career at 33 years of age when I went to meet with my staff. A lot of them didn't have the formal training and the formal education, but a lot of them stayed with me for those 6 years. You know why? Because they had heart and they cared. And those were the employees that it was 9 o'clock and we had closed at 8 and one of the kids had not been picked up. So to me, the foundation that anybody could possess for me to invest and work with them is that they have heart and that they really care. And then from there, everything can be accomplished, even if we have not invested in them, which is a shame, because we have a responsibility to invest in our employee, in their tools, in their resources, in their professional development.
So just to make sure I understand you, you're saying that if you encounter an employee who is not at the level that we're saying we're going to set the expectation at, but they want to be, we're going to get them there. We're going to invest in them. We're going to work with them.
Yes,
and
we're going to work with them. We're going to put a game plan in place and check their progress. But I think something as simple as looking at the uniforms that our employees are wearing. You know, this Dania Beach, you know, our new logo, our see it, live it, love it, that needs to trickle down, all the way down to the employees and all the way back up. Our employees, like Commissioner Harris said, are ambassadors. They need to be made to feel proud. If our employees are walking around with the same T-shirt that they got 4 years ago, well, no, that's not acceptable. We need to invest in our people, in their professional certifications. I had a great manager. Look, I'll give you a little story. When I started working in the city of South Miami back in 1997, 3 months later, the manager wasn't there. And all of a sudden, all the department directors, everybody was all stressed out. And I was like excited because I said, there's a new opportunity here with a new manager. And I'll never forget my first evaluation with that new manager, Charles Skur, who later became the executive director of the Citizens Independent, the half a penny tax for transit and transportation. He gave me all high marks with the exception of one that he gave me a 4, and I really wanted a 5. And he said, professional development. You need to find the time for professional development. I said, well, Mr. Skur, I'm just so busy. And he said, well, then you're never going to get that 5. Let me tell you that year, I joined my professional organization. I went to the national conference, and I still do. And when I became city manager, I got involved in the city manager's professional organization. I became president of the manager's organization. I got the rest of the team to change the bylaws so it would not just be for managers and assistant managers, but the department directors could come as well. Because the more that can rise, the more of a legacy that I leave behind. To me, my greatest legacy is not going to be a building. It's not going to be a park, even though I'm very proud of a lot of our parks. It's going to be the people that will continue to serve and provide great services. But yes, absolutely, investing in our people so they feel like they're special. Not just about giving them, oh, they have a job. No. There's a greater responsibility than just having a job and cutting somebody a paycheck. It's how do we invest in them, because that return on that investment is priceless. And I'm an example of that because I had a great city manager in Charles Skur.
Thank you, Anna. I think we reached the last
That's-
question.
Yeah, I was going to go into that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Before we actually get to the last question, I want to see if anybody else has any specific questions that they'd like to ask that are not included on this
I do.
list. Go ahead, Commissioner James.
How are you with intergovernmental affairs, working with the CRA, the Housing Authority, and the county?
Well, when I was in the city of North Miami Beach, the CRA worked hand in hand with us. I really love recruiting business. I could be down in my neck of the woods where my mom lives, and I went to a bakery for the very first time. And I said, we don't have this type of bakery in North Miami Beach. Long story short, I asked to talk to the manager. They were about to sign on the dotted line for a lease in the city of North Miami, and they ended up not signing that lease, and they came to the city of North Miami Beach. Constantly recruiting business, constantly waving that flag for Dania Beach. I've worked the CRAs going back to the city of South Miami. We are only as good as the areas that need dire attention. If there's blight in one corner, we need to make sure that there is a mission and a vision of a city that's safe and beautiful. But working with CRAs and being able to partner with the counties and being able to look at public-private partnerships is a great opportunity, particularly here that this is a TIFLess CRA, starting opportunities for people to have incentives to invest here, but also not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to federal funding and state funding. I think all of us collectively going to Tallahassee, going to Washington, and
You
being
said all of us,
ambassadors.
like you would travel to Tallahassee as well?
I have spent the past 21 years going to Tallahassee. 4 cities going
Wow.
to Tallahassee. I believe Mr. Ron Book is your
Yes.
lobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
I've been working with him for a very, very long time. And he knows when it comes from my city, I don't want to use the word pit bull, but
You can use it.
okay.
You can use it. That's fine.
Okay.
We have pit bulls up here.
No, when I'm in Tallahassee, the legislative agenda for my city, that's the most important one. And if you pick up the phone and call Ron, and Ron has to call you, and you didn't get as much as you wanted, respectfully, in the locker room, which is my office. But he has worked very hard for us, and I've known him for a very long time. But without a doubt, we have to really look outside the box for our CRA, partners, public-private, very, 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 very important, and really thinking outside the box. But going to Tallahassee and Washington, D.C., wherever we need to go that there's an opportunity, we need to make sure that we get a slice of that pie if there's funding.
Okay, and about the county, because, I mean, you're in Dade County, correct? This is Broward County. What relationship do you currently have with people that are in Broward County?
Well, I just got a phone call with one of the candidates that applied for this position, and she just became an ACM, and I'm getting to know more people. And by the way, she called me and wished me good luck. Susan Grant is a really great and dear friend. We have relationships that cross borders. I don't want to be, just Miss 305 like Pitbull. I want to be worldwide. And now, if my world here is in Dania Beach, I am going to get involved with the chamber, and not just this chamber, but with the Hollywood Chamber. Just already, not even knowing that you guys were going to be discussing the Super Bowl, I've already signed on to be part of that conversation with the Rodney Barreto, the chairman of the board. Also, my involvement in the International Managers Association and in the Florida Managers Association, I have already forged existing relationships and will continue to grow on those existing relationships.
And then the last thing about that question was the housing authority. How has your relationship been with the housing authority in various cities where you've worked?
It's been limited. But wherever I didn't have a certain knowledge, that becomes a greater focus for me in having those meetings and being able to grow in that area. You're not going to have a manager that has strengths in every category, but whatever area I need to get better. I was always that player on the team that if I was really good at playing third base, but I knew that the catcher was always going to start. I learned how to play that catcher position. Same thing in basketball. If I wasn't going to score a lot of points and that ball was going to be on the floor, I was going to pick up that ball. So that's what would be, one of the priorities, housing authority.
Okay.
Commissioner Brandon.
Have you ever worked with a city that had a fit with CRA?
No, ma'am. Good challenge to have, though. I welcome challenges.
Commissioner James?
Yes, I wanted her to be able to go. This is my last question of what I had on my paper. How informed are you with what's going on in different departments? If we come and have an individual meeting with you, will you be able to tell us, because I know you say you have your weekly meetings within the department heads, will you be able to tell us exactly what's going on in these departments? Or are you going to say, I don't know, let me get back to you. I don't know about that, or I didn't never hear about that. I want to know, like, your style on being a leader that can delegate, but also really knows what's going on. Because if someone, a reporter or anyone comes and something happens and they come and talk to you, are you going to know what's going on in these different departments, or are you going to have to go and call each department head to get back to us?
Without a doubt, I will know. So imagine that hybrid of a coach that empowers you, but is also hands-on. So my foundation came from a really, really good city manager back when I was 34 years old, and we would have weekly meetings. And when you're sitting there as the Parks and Recreation Director, and you're sitting there with your police chief, and all of a sudden there's an issue with crime, but then we can come up with a police athletic league, which is a deterrent for crime because you're investing in youth. And when your building department is there and there's been some issues, but your police department can say, well, listen, maybe we need to talk to our residents and we need to lower some of those hedges and make sure that everybody has a working light outside their door. I think it's extremely important, not just for me to be informed, but for teams not to work in silos. I think that there needs to be such a smooth, seamless relationship between all department directors, because if the net needs to be fixed, I just don't want the poor parks director who may be handling 20 million things to have to wait until one of his employees sees it, because maybe one of the guys from Public Works sees it. So it's extremely important, not just for me to be informed in these weekly meetings, but for them to be informed and be excited about what the other departments are doing. Without a doubt. Thank you for that question.
Commissioner Harris?
Do you encourage all your department heads to attend their professional associations and do travel to conferences and bring back information for building practices, accounting, trash removal, Parks and Rec conferences? I mean, I think in the past that not everyone has traveled as much in the past, but now that there's more conferences available, I think we should encourage them to go to their conferences, get their continuing education credits, and bring back the best practices, and then, distribute the information to the employees and then, to us as well.
If we want to be that premier city, we can't just say we want to do something. Our words and our actions need to be aligned, and they need to be aligned in what we do every single day. Because that was encouraged in me, that's something that I grew up as a professional for the past 25 years. And is extremely important because that benefit trickles down to everybody else. I've gone to city that all their parks look the same, and that's just the one standard bench and the one standard trash can, and that's it. We have great opportunities. We really have great opportunities, but I'll never forget when I went to my first national conference, and I was like, I couldn't carry enough brochures. I mean, and I put them in bags, and I reached out to those people again, and I saw the difference between a wood bench and recycled plastic, and how you have to maintain that wood bench, and how that recycled plastic, that return on the investment is just so priceless to a team, to you, and to all our residents. Without a doubt, that needs to happen.
Does anybody have any other questions before we go to the last question? Okay. Last question is, why are you interested in this position, and is there anything you would like to add or clarify before we conclude?
I'm interested in this position, and I think it's very important, because I know Commissioner Brandemar, you wanted other people to be here with me. It's because I don't want to settle, respectfully, to the other people that have become an assistant manager. When you've been a head coach and you've done great things as a head coach, you don't want to be an assistant coach. So first and foremost, I want to continue on a path that I've been in for the past 10 years as a city manager and as a leader. But also because I see tremendous potential in this city. Tremendous potential that I saw when I first started in South Miami Parks and Recreation. Tremendous potential when I started with Palmetto Bay, which was a city that the voters had voted to leave the county and incorporate. And just like I see tremendous potential here, and that's why I'm extremely excited. I'm excited to be able to invest in the city, invest in the team, and really take Dania Beach to the highest of heights that the city has ever experienced.
Any follow-ups? No? Well, thank you very much, Anna. We really appreciate your time today and answering our questions. I think everybody's finished here. And my understanding is that you will be around for a little bit afterwards if anybody does think of anything and they'd like to go and ask. So with that, I guess you can be excused.
Thank you,
very much.
and thank you for your time. And I'm extremely excited, and I feel like it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up, Renee. I think a few people have questions for you as well. So, Vice Mayor, I know you had a question.
Renee, do we have any, so we were supposed to vote on this, on on how we're moving forward at the next commission meeting, right? Do we have any option to hold well, maybe this might be more of a Tom question, to hold a special meeting to do that vote if there's consensus?
I think we'll defer to the city attorney on that question.
Okay.
Yeah, the charter provides that if you're going to do an employment contract, there's two different ways to do this. You either appoint by a resolution or by an employment contract. But if you do an employment contract, it requires a public hearing 5 days in advance. It does, the way it's written written in such a way that you could begin negotiations. You could begin negotiations now with the applicant for an employment contract, and then as long as we publish 5 days before whatever date the hearing is set, whether it's a special hearing or the next commission meeting, it has to have at least a public hearing before you sign an employment contract with an applicant.
So we could conceivably start on that today and then publish it for 5 days out. That puts us at Tuesday. Is that within the scope of what we legally can do?
It's going to be dependent on how long it takes to negotiate and conclude negotiations. And the trick would be, since we can't meet and have this discussion unless at a public hearing, because of the Sunshine Law, typically what's been done in the past is you delegate, and it's typically been to the mayor with your discussion here today of what you'd like to see in a contract, and then I work with your designee, again, typically the mayor, to work with the candidate and hammer out a contract. When the contract is done, so that you pretty much know what it is, I can inform each of you separately, as long as you're not talking to each other, and then make sure that the applicant, of course, I wouldn't do that until you have something from the applicant who agrees to those terms. Then you set the date. You wouldn't set the date till you know you have a contract.
So I guess my next question would be to the commission. Is there any interest in trying to move it up to do a special meeting so that we can get the process started sooner? Or do you just want to wait until our next meeting, which is on the 26th, and just leave it to the 26th? What would
I
the
think
commission
before
like to
we,
do?
I'm sorry, but I think we have to first determine whether or not there's even a consensus to move it forward. That's, I think, our first step. And I think we need to address that before we talk about special meetings or anything more than that.
Okay, so
at this point.
should we do that to see if there's a...
Well, I mean, does anybody have any questions of Renee, or do we want to have a further discussion here about the applicant first? I think that's important. And I know obviously we had concerns that were addressed at the beginning of this meeting. So I don't know if those concerns have been alleviated at all, or if there is still a concern with that. And if so, we probably need to address that as well.
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Commissioner Harris has your light on.
No, I would honestly, seriously be comfortable with moving the process forward with a contract to hire Ms. Garcia as our city manager. Based on the past interviews and what we've heard today, I don't know what the consensus is of the other commissioners, but I would certainly like to hear it.
Absolutely. I mean, let's just make sure that everyone's concerns are addressed and answered as best as possible, and then we can see if there's a consensus. And if there is, then we can have the next conversation from there. So I just wanted to make sure everyone's
And
concerned.
Commissioner James, you were nodding your head when I was talking about further discussion about the applicant. Did you have something specific you wanted to address?
Well, no, I just wanted to have the opportunity to see if there was any dialogue or discussion amongst us five in regards to what we heard. I mean, typically that's how it was in the past. Like, we sat here and we kind of talked about our likes, our dislikes, and if we were comfortable with it. But of course, there was more than one applicant. So as long as we're like taking those steps, we can all take those steps in sequence of today or whatever the will of the commission is. But I definitely wanted to make sure that we addressed any concerns that, if anyone had any. I addressed all of them. I had a whole bunch of stuff on the back of my paper, and I'm glad that because I didn't do the one-on-ones, I got to ask some of the questions that I was concerned about earlier.
Good, I'm glad. Would you like to start with any discussion about the applicant or things that you'd like to address with us?
I mean, no, I do think that she fits a style that is going to induce change in the city. That could be great, or that could be worrisome. I do think that with anyone that we hire as a city manager, there will be a period of transition, and that it may be uncomfortable. I wanted to know how we feel about that and how we're going to go about if we're going to evaluate whoever within those, if it's the 90 days or 6 months. I truly think that 90 days isn't enough time to really evaluate anyone because, again, she's going to have to come in. It's going to be a learning curve on her end or whoever's end, and it's going to be a learning curve on the behalf of, of all of our employees. And to truly see some type of direction is going to take 6 to 10 months, in my honest opinion, if you can really look and see if this process is going the way we want it to go or if it's not going the way we want it to go. I also wanted to make sure we have some type of a safety net or a safety measure to where it seems like you all really like her, and to say if she was awarded this position, and this is maybe more of a Tom question. I'm not sure how this really works, but my opinion would kind of be to say, you know what, this contract is not guaranteed until a certain time if certain things aren't met. So if we aren't protected in some type of way, and what stipulations we put in that, I don't know. That's something that we would have to collectively come up with together. But I wouldn't want to not have any type of an out of this situation, you know, barring it is something that comes and it's like a train wreck versus the opposite way around. But you run that risk regardless of who is going to be the city manager. So it's nothing on Mrs. Garcia. It's just I want to be able to know that we are protecting ourselves as a commission, because this is going to be a change in leadership here that is really going to trickle down to every single employee here.
And I think that is a Tom question. I think-
So if I may, again, it's not unusual for a commission to appoint a manager. We know it takes 4/5 vote at least to do that. You hope, as Renee will tell you, that everybody's on board, but at least it takes 4 to get there. You could do it by a resolution, and the resolution without a contract. That only works if the applicant is willing to do that without a contract. If you have a contract, I don't know how long the maximum term you can have is 3 years, but it doesn't have to be a 3-year term. It could be whatever term you negotiate, a 1-year term, which could be renewed. It can never be renewed beyond a 3-year term, even if you start, max is 3 years of a contract.
So do you renew or extend that contract?
You can extend you could make a contract for a year, and if things are working out, you would have the ability to add 2 additional years, or anything no more than 3 years total from the date it began.
So I wouldn't want to do anything with a resolution because, as you know, she probably has other things, and that's just no security in someone wanting to invest their time and their resources and their energy somewhere to where it takes one person on a bad day and they're going to get rid of her. So I definitely wouldn't want to do that, and I don't think that any candidate is going to take a 1-year contract. That's definitely not fair. I was just trying to see if there is any type of way that we could put certain stipulations, and maybe there isn't. And I'm okay with that. I just wanted to have the conversation.
Just a comment on that. Is there, would the charter actually go into effect if there was some issue that took place within, say, the 1 year that it really, I highly doubt that it would be a train wreck, but in the event that something major happened, would there be something that would kick in from the charter that might actually impact our ability to do something in a shorter period of time? Or would it have to be strictly based upon the contract?
The contract is going to control, but it has to be consonant with what the charter says. So, for example, a contract, there's a provision in a contract, if you have one, shall include a number of provisions that are listed. There's 5 different provisions, typically about ethics, consistency with the International City Managers Association's codes, those kind of things. Resolution doesn't talk about any of that. That's just a basic resolution. So you understand the likelihood of attracting this woman without a contract is remote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're
I don't
talking
think it
about
would be for
we're
any
talking
good
about a
candidate.
contract. You're talking about a contract.
Yeah,
You're
good.
talking about a maximum 3-year contract. If you do some sort of performance standards, that's what you would be able to do. You'd have a review, I suppose. You could build in a review, 6 months, a year. That has to be negotiated. That would take a little more time in writing this carefully to protect you, and she's going to, of course, protect herself.
Commissioner
So I would-
Brandamorti?
Tom, a candidate, right, in this position right now, will go after a 3-year contract knowing that there's an election in 2 years. Absolutely. She will not settle for anything less than a 3-year contract. If she does, you better rethink your program, because she knows there's going to be different commissioners up here. So she would be protecting herself with the 3-year contract. I'll bet you she'll never agree to anything less. And what you can do about it is this or nothing. But should some of you not get elected, right, they could just as well throw her out without the 3-year contract.
All right. Any other questions on that topic? Okay. Did you want to talk about likes, dislikes, or anything like that with regard to her?
It doesn't matter to me. You can run it however you want to run it, I think.
Okay. Well, that's because I know that is something that I think we should discuss, the things that we like about her, the things that we don't like about her, and where
I like her
we
style. Like I said, she kind of reminds me of a time where I was really uncomfortable as a basketball player, the senior in college, to where someone came in and disrupted everything. And at first it was like a shock. It was just like, no, I'm not doing this. No, wait. I'm uncomfortable. However, within that last year of my senior year, I learned so much from that current coach. It was more than I had learned in the 3 years before. But it's going to have to be something. As a commission, if we choose to move forward with her, we have to buy into this system, even if it's uncomfortable and unorthodox of what we have previously experienced. Not saying that we're going to listen to her if she's telling us to do something wrong.
Oh, yeah, you will. She's very aggressive.
Okay, not saying if, we're going to listen to her if she's telling us to do something wrong or unethical or immoral or something like that, but really have an open mind to where we want the city to go. And she seems like she wants everyone to be excellent and great, but I also know that everyone brings their A game to these interviews. They're going to tell you every great thing about them. I wouldn't point out like all of my negative things, but I've done my due diligence of speaking with so many different individuals on all of the concerns I've had, all of the concerns that was brought forth to me, everything that was said negatively and positively about her. So those are my thoughts on her.
Commissioner Harris?
Would you be comfortable working with Anna?
Yes. I don't think it's anything that she is exhibiting that I'm going to say that was extremely negative.
Right.
No,
the reason I ask you is because, I kind of, after my one-on-one in my initial phone interview, that I would feel very comfortable with working with her and, basically seeing what she can do. And since we have not had anyone at the helm for quite a while, I think this is the right opportunity, the right person at the right time to make the move.
Commissioner Brandemarty?
Yeah. My opening statement still stands on that. I still feel that I want to compare her with someone else that maybe has the same goals like that, but not so aggressive. You up here are used to taking, we up here, I should say, are used to taking crap in plain English. Our employees are not. And sometimes when you have such an aggressive change like this, the train wreck will be coming. And it will even start in, I don't know if anybody picked up on it or not, but when the question was asked by me about family, nepotism, that went out the window. Her answer was she don't believe in it.
Well, she says she doesn't believe in nepotism, but she's not going to say if she wants the best person for the job, regardless if it's someone that's related to her.
But she's not in favor of families working together. Now, I'm telling you, you're going to see exactly what you predicted down the end. And that's why I like her, what she wants to do, but I think her aggressiveness is not going to go over well with our employees, but I'll be the vote that says no, and you will be the vote that says yes, and I'll just sit back and reap in the rewards.
Okay.
Vice Mayor? We're talking about likes and dislikes.
Likes and dislikes.
Commissioner Brandemarty, I heard you saying she's.
No, just to
No,
address
I'm just.
yourself.
I'm talking. So I heard you say she's gonna beat me up, and I look forward to that. I love this tough candidate. I love that she's unapologetic. I love how smart she is. I love that she has the forethought that she's already thinking ahead of what's going to be going on next year. So is she tough? Yes. Does she have high expectations? Yes. I think that's all things that we need, the commission needs, that the city needs, that the employees need. And, it did cause me some degree of pause when I was looking into her successes and everything she had done and seen about the privatization. It caused me concern for our employees. During the one-on-ones, she addressed that extensively. I had some really tough questions for her. I probably asked the same question 5 different ways. And I understood it. I understood where she was coming from. And I appreciated that she didn't try and backpedal. She didn't try and sugarcoat it. She was honest about the decisions that she made. And if I had to pick one quality in a leader who's going to be working with us, it's that unapologetic honesty. Here it is. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. This is where I am. Not this, oh, I see like this person might be mad at me, or oh, I see that this person seems to be very into the union, so I'm going to sugarcoat what I say to make it fit for them. She doesn't do that, and I like it. So if she gives me a headache, good. I'll take Motrin. I hope we move forward with her. I'm really excited for Ana Garcia.
Commissioner Harris?
In my previous career, when I worked for Marriott Corporation for about 20 years, and it was, at Jackson Memorial Hospital, every couple of years, we got a new general manager. So there was some uncomfortability going there. But, it's like what Tamara said with team sports, you get a new coach. Lauren, in her nursing profession, I'm sure, has gone through different nurse managers. Lori, through your law practice, it's a change. It's how you internalize and view the change as a positive thing rather than a negative. And I like her, like Lauren just said, her grit and, tenacity and all of that. It's kind of hard to put into words, but what she said earlier on, which we heard firsthand a few weeks ago when the former vice president that we talked about the trust and forging trust and developing trust. And then we can all do great things together when we can establish that trust. So I'm perfectly comfortable with, developing a contract however we need to do that.
Well, I have a few comments. First of all, I really appreciate the point that Commissioner James made earlier about change and how when you experienced a new coach in your senior year and how that you didn't want the change. No, I don't think anybody really likes change, and we all know change is hard. I think we are a testament to change being hard, and we've gone through our growing pains. I think we're getting better, and I think we are coming together more. And last night was a testament to that as well. And I think that's a similar situation, and it doesn't matter if it's Ana Garcia or who it is. I think we're still going to see that no matter what, not just with city staff, but also with our residents and with the city commission and everybody. So I don't think that it makes a difference who it is. We're still going to have those same issues. Before I was a lawyer, I actually was in management. I worked for a large managed care organization for a number of years, and I was in a director position, and I did hire and fire and do all those things. And something that I did was if I went into a new position, I would sit down with each and every employee and I would interview them and I would talk to them and ask them about the things that they liked, the things they didn't like, and that sort of thing. Ana Garcia seems to be doing that same sort of thing. And although she may be aggressive about certain things, and I don't know that aggressive is the word that I would use. I'd use more the word assertive. That's a good quality in a leader, to be assertive about things, to be definitive about your decisions. But I do think that the fact that she's willing to meet with people, listen to them, observe, is a way to soften those changes. And I think it does help because she gets an opportunity to hear what people say. And she did say she was an observer several times. I think that is helpful in making the transition easier overall. I personally really like her enthusiasm. I like the fact that she prepared an entire document for each of us and she put it on paper as opposed to just sending it via email. Somebody who takes the time to do that tells me that they're really interested and they really want the job and they really want to be a part of this. They want to really put their best foot forward. Even before candidates dropped out, nobody else did that. So that to me says a lot. And also the fact that she's been visiting the city. She's been watching our meetings. She, knew things that we had discussed in our meetings. The fact that she brought up issues from the beach. If she's taking the time on her own personal time to come to Dania Beach, look around and see the things that are going on, that's clearly someone who is thinking ahead and she wants to be a part of this city and she wants to be a part of what we're doing here. And the enthusiasm that she has, same enthusiasm. I also did the one-on-ones, and it comes off of her as far as how enthusiastic she is about this, which I think is a huge part of this in the first place because she wants to do things and she wants to do good things and she's got a vision. I am disappointed that there are not more people at this point. And again, I will ask the question in front of everybody: did we miss anybody? Is there somebody else that we need to interview? Is there somebody else that even just that's qualified, that doesn't have a job yet, that maybe we need to speak with before making such a decision?
Mayor, I checked the applicant pool, and there's no one that has applied since our last meeting. So I have talked with you about the pool and where we stand on that, and I don't believe we missed anyone. You also have to look at the fact that realistically, we've kind of set a bar here. It has to be someone who can compete at that level or be stronger than that to be considered at this point. But to answer your question directly, there are no additional candidates that have applied since the last time that we spoke. I don't believe that we overlooked anyone. And if we should decide that we must talk with additional candidates, in my opinion, it would require going out and basically doing another round, if you will. Now, that said, I want to be mindful of the fact that, again, to be fair to Ms. Garcia, she's being considered now. I don't think the option to hold her over until we do that is even on the table. I would not recommend it. I think that is I think it's unfair to her. If we're going to consider her, then we should consider her, and if we're not, then our options, in my opinion, are to go back out again.
Okay. Well, so then I think we need to determine whether or not, I'm sorry, Commissioner Harris? No, that's okay, go ahead. No, I was going to say, I think at this point our options are basically to determine whether or not we have a consensus to move this forward and move forward with drafting a contract.
Do you want to take a vote?
We can take a vote. We can't vote. Okay, so.
You just express your preference. It's clear what you, Mr. Harris, it's clear what you prefer.
Yes.
Ms. Oddman is
Mayor.
clear. The mayor is clear.
Right.
I think Ms. Brandemeyer is clear. Ms. James, I'm not sure.
So the consensus is 3. So Mayor, you're okay with it?
I'm fine with moving forward. I think she's a very strong candidate.
And because clearly you have the consensus to move forward because you need 3 and then you'll put it on.
You need 4.
No, you need 4.
Okay, well, I'll agree. We can move forward in seeing how this looks, and then especially how it looks on paper and by contract, and then I don't know how you guys are going to do.
Now, again, this is the part for me from you. You can either individually contact me and say, here's elements I would like to have in the contract. Don't share them with each other. It's very important. You can do them by email. That's fine if you wish, or call, or meet, whatever is preferable. But I want to start to incorporate in a draft what that would say.
Could you give us samples of different
I was going to suggest that.
contracts?
I can do that, yes.
Because-
I'll give you the one that we formally use for the manager, but I have 2 others.
Right,
that
give
I
us
can
a
share right away.
varieties, because some might be.
I will do that.
Okay.
Then we can actually look at some things that are typically in the contract, and
Right.
then if there's something not in there that maybe one of us or all of us want, we can let Tom know that as well.
And again, we're in a public forum, that's what we're stuck with. But salary is the first discussion item. So I don't know, Renee, you guide us. Did we discuss this at this point? Do they bring that up now and say,
think
here's
so.
a number or a range?
I think we can.
It's uncomfortable because
Yeah, 'cause-
it's public, but it is what it is.
We can have that conversation if the commission would like to do that. I just need to leave here with two things today. One is, if in fact we are moving this forward, is I need to know who the point contact person is for negotiations. I'm going to assume that's your city attorney, but I don't want to assume that. I need direction from you about that.
If it's the mayor, it's the mayor. It's whoever you choose.
Well, I would think if it's negotiating a contract, it should definitely be the city attorney.
I would agree.
Okay.
I don't have an issue
Okay.
with that.
My,
All
my,
right.
my other statement that I need to make very clear is moving forward, anything that we do, any contract, any negotiations, anything is contingent on backgrounds clearing. And we will make that happen just as quickly as possible. I don't anticipate finding anything, but that's just a part of this. But anything in writing will have a caveat to it that this is all contingent on backgrounds clearing. Very quickly, before we start talking about terms, I do want to just mention a couple of things. Typically, I don't see a one-year contract. It takes 2 years for someone to get their feet on
Right.
the ground. 3 years is the maximum. That is fine. There is typically language in a contract relative to performance. They can be let go for cause or without cause. Okay, if it's for cause, they're just gone. So in reality, your city manager has a contract from one meeting to the next when you really get down to it, if there's cause related. If there's something going on, and it has to be kind of specified, there's some egregious things that pertains to. And then there's the without cause clause for separation for a city manager. That is where it's not their performance. There's no documented performance problems. They're doing a great job. For whatever reason, it could be new commissioners, for whatever reason, there's a decision, we're going our separate ways. And for some level of protection for candidates, there is a severance that's included that is due to contracted city managers if they are let go without cause. They've done nothing wrong. And this is just a protection for them because, again, a new group comes in and they could just be gone because they were picked by the previous group for no other reason. That said, the state of Florida now limits the number of weeks of severance.
I think it's the 4 months, is that
4
right?
months. Actually, it's 40, no. It's
A number of weeks, is that
It's a
right?
number of weeks, which I think equates to, I think it's 20 weeks total.
20
which-
weeks, okay, that's
Which,
right.
depending
Which is
on the
3 months.
calendar.
3 months.
Could it be accrued over time? So for example, if there becomes an issue, say in 6 months, that it would only be, so many weeks, not go
prorated?
immediately to the full 20 weeks. You do over time, so it's prorated, basically. Yeah,
That is
so
an
you're
item
accruing
for
it.
negotiation for certain. I will tell you that typically in comparable cities and in this region, you pretty much see the 20 weeks included in the package on the front end. But again, all of these things are negotiable items. But I did want to point out that performance reviews, scheduled performance reviews are tied to that. Those performance reviews are kind of a course correction document where you sit down and you say, hey, you're hitting the mark, but you're not hitting it here or there, and giving that opportunity to your manager to make that correction. So when you go to your next 6 months of performance reviews, if you see they're not moving the needle on that, then you've got to address it at some level. But performance reviews should be a part of the contract and tied to it.
I don't know how the last contract was written out, but I don't want to fall into a situation to where there was never any evaluation, and then our last managers just didn't have a contract for a number of years because, they're just going off of, I don't even know how it worked, but I don't want to repeat mistakes we made in the past moving forward. So I want to make sure that, if an evaluation is tied into this contract, that the evaluation must happen and certain things must go on with that. And if we don't get a consensus of, I guess 4, I'm assuming, because that's what you need. I don't know really what happens. Is that what happened with the last?
No, if you appoint without a contract, it takes 4/5 vote to remove. Since it will be a contract, that's clear now. You could probably just set it, if there was a majority of the commission is dissatisfied without cause, it's a motion without cause, you terminate
So
and you
is
pay
that 3?
severance. I'm sorry?
That's a three.
You can, for a contract, you can do that, yes. Without a
I
contract,
wouldn't be comfortable doing that.
well, you can set it for 4 if you wish to do that.
I mean, I'm just saying, because in another election, all you need is 2 other people to come up here with one other person that's dissatisfied, and she's out the door just like that. And it could be that she did nothing wrong, but just by contract. So whatever we're doing, I want it to remain a 4/5 vote, because anything other than that, it can sway too easily. I want to protect us. I want to protect, what is her name, Anna, and I want to protect this city, because she could be doing great things in this city, and you have some people that are uncomfortable or whatever, and it just be out, or she can be doing horrible things, and you don't have people. I just want to be able to be consistent in whatever we're doing.
Okay, is there, just a quick question, if there's a consensus, it would be take 4/5 without cause.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, with the way we have things set up where you have people coming in and out, that seems like
And
the
anybody
most
else?
sensible thing.
Okay, Mayor, Ms. Brandemeier?
Disagree.
Okay,
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that.
we don't have to decide it now, but it's just, I'm trying to take a temperature on some of the things. So you can park that for now, we'll
Yeah.
think about it.
I need to think about that.
So this tells me, as you can see, that we're not ready to set a hearing until we've got time to sit down with her, and I collect all of what you want to do to offer something. I don't want to send her something until everybody's on board, say, yes, this is a collective agreement to offer the contract with these terms.
So I guess
And
I
will
need
send you a draft.
clarification.
I'm sorry?
I guess I need clarification then. So when do we need a 4/5 vote to get rid of a city manager?
Under the charter, if you appoint by a resolution where the person serves at the pleasure, which is just a resolution, not a contract, charter requires 4/5 to terminate without cause.
Okay, and
if
what's
it's a contract-
in the resolution, can the contract or the terms be written in that resolution instead then?
When you appoint just by resolution with no contract, it's called serving at the pleasure. And if you want to terminate the manager in that case, 3 votes is enough to terminate that resolution. That's no contract again. That's just, this is not even an issue, because no one's she won't work without a contract.
Right.
And you don't want to do that. So that's not an issue.
So if we
what you
have
would
the
do,
contract, we can,
I would put in the contract for you to terminate without cause would require a 4/5 vote. And that typically will then trigger payment of severance, is how you negotiate it, which is the 20 weeks.
okay, and Mayor, you're not comfortable with 3 people without cause wanting to get rid of it? That's the only thing I'm saying.
No, I'm comfortable if it was 3 people, but
But
if
what
you're
I'm saying,
saying 4.
without, my thing is the part of without cause. So if the city manager wasn't doing anything incorrectly or anything that is considerably without cause, you're saying that you only want 3 people that's without cause just to get rid of them?
I want to look into it further, is
Okay.
what I'm saying.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure we're understanding, because I don't want it to be flip-flop. Okay.
I want to look into it further.
Okay.
I need to explore that a little more.
And I can try to get a sense from employment lawyers what they've seen for other city managers' contracts about that issue of 5-member or 7, whatever the number would be.
Okay.
Right.
To see if there's how often that works that way. Or
So
if
is that the only thing that would prohibit
No.
us from?
No.
No, I mean.
It doesn't prohibit us from
Salary
moving
was going to be
forward.
something to talk about, but if you want to talk about range, at this point, Renee, yes?
Sure, that'll be fine if that's
Because,
the
I
will of
mean,
the commission.
she should know.
Commissioner Harris has a question too, and so does Commissioner Brandemeier.
Tom, you asked for anything that we'd like to see in the contract.
Yes.
I think based on our experience up here, sports contracts, with client contracts, nursing contracts, and with Lori's professional and management contracts, that you want us to send you our caveats to the contract that we'd like to see in there?
If there's anything you want to share now,
Okay.
that's a good time to do it. But if you prefer to send it by email, again, bear in mind, it's going to be shared with the others anyhow. You don't have to talk about it today publicly. And I know it's uncomfortable. The public has the right to know all this stuff, but again, you're still trying to figure out each other's where you want to be with the applicant, so.
Commissioner Brandemeier?
Yeah, I think we just went through that with Tom, with Bob Baldwin. He had no contract, but you had to the only way you could fire him was with 4 votes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but then he said 3 without cause or something. So I don't understand that, because we
It's
had
by
I didn't think you
resolution
understood
versus.
it.
It was resolution
Because
versus
it's a
contract.
resolution, not a contract.
But we still needed 4 then,
Yeah.
but with cause, we needed 3, or I don't know.
In Mr. Baldwin's situation, which was odd, as you pointed out,
Yeah.
his contract expired,
Right.
and then under law, it renewed, basically without being written, it
Yeah.
renewed as an oral
You didn't have
contract,
to ask.
month after month, and so it took 4 votes to
didn't
terminate him
ask.
if you chose to do that.
Okay.
You can put a contract in and say, without cause, it takes 3 votes. You can say that.
Okay.
Vice Mayor?
I can't stand what she
Do you, am I not clear about it yet?
No, go, like, I could be clear later on. That's something that, you
It
know.
might be better if I write it, you see it. It's up to you. Or you can call whatever's good for any of all of you.
Vice Mayor?
So do we want to discuss ranges, or should we just,
Yeah.
or would you rather send it to Tom? Okay, start talking
I
about
think-
ranges.
I think we need to know
think we
where
need to
she
discuss
stands
it,
first
right.
and foremost, because Renee will know that information, and then we can get a better sense.
So when I initially interviewed Anna, I'm not allowed to ask where people's salary, what their salary is anymore. It's public, so you can get it. But my question to her was, where would you want to be or like to be to consider this position salary-wise? And she volunteered the information to me that she was at 210 in North Miami Beach. That was her last salary. And I said, and where would you like to be to consider this? And she said, well, I'm not looking to go higher than that. I will go lower than that, but she wanted to get as close to 200 as possible. Now, that's a negotiable item. I think that's something that you have to discuss. I think last time around, most of our candidates wanted to be 180, 190 that we interviewed. I think that's around where they were. So I would say that establishing a range from here to here, and unfortunately, we're working in the public, and that's the way we have to do these things. So it's all out there for everybody to know this, but I think at minimal, establishing a range. My recommendation is 180 to 200, and then giving that to your city attorney so that he knows a range in which he can move forward. So those were the 3 things I needed to mention. One is that I needed someone who was appointed to negotiate a contract. I think we're in agreement that the city attorney is going to do that. 2, that you have to understand that anything he writes or is put forward is contingent on backgrounds finishing, and we're going to do that just as quickly as possible. I don't anticipate there's going to be a problem with that. And the 3rd thing I would encourage you to do is to establish that range in this discussion, so that moves us along further, and Tom has the liberty that he needs to move forward. Thank
So
you,
can I
Mayor.
finish?
Yeah, you were still going? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I was going to give my range to move the process along. If is that where we're going, Mayor?
I think so.
Okay, so my range for the contract would be 190 to 200.
I would suggest 185 to 200.
Actually, hello?
Go ahead.
Did I push my button?
Actually, I think Commissioner James
No,
had pushed hers.
he's fine. No, go ahead. I want to hear.
Actually, the words coming out of my mouth were going to be what Lauren said, 190 to 2,000. I think based on the survey.
2,000.
2,000.
2,000.
No, I'm saying 200. Yeah, $2,000 a day. Based on the surveys that I've done with other mayors of comparable sized cities in the Broward League of Cities, I think that's a good range. I mean, that information is out there and it's all verifiable.
Smaller than the one she's coming from.
No, they're not.
What's the population where she came from?
I was
From
thinking so.
North Miami?
Yeah.
I can look it up.
Hold on just a
And
second.
we're
Sorry.
60.
We're
No, 30.
We're
I
30.
mean, 30.
No, I said
So we're less.
comparable sized cities in Broward. In the League of Cities, like Weston, Coconut Creek, Margate, Tamarack, I said Weston, Pembroke
Allenville.
Pines. I mean, that information is out there, and I checked. So,
Population North Miami Beach as of 2016, 43,000 and change. It's not much.
45,000.
My opinion, or my discussion for this is whatever it is, how does that work with maybe raises over those 3 years instead of just something to work, a goal to work towards, or are we just giving them that and then they just get the same raises that the rest of the employees give? Is that how it works?
This was base salary that I was stating.
the
Oh, base
benefits
salary.
go up at the same time as when our employees
Okay,
get their raise.
okay.
Well, but you're also, when you do an evaluation, because you want to have that in there apparently, you could
Right,
use,
that's what I'm saying.
you can use the evaluation period to say you've done such a stellar job.
That we'll discuss
We have agreed to give you a raise of X. You can-
That's what I'm- I
Without
guess
saying
that's
that,
what I'm
it'll just be inherent in the process.
Right.
You don't have to build it in.
Okay, I will be comfortable with that. As far as the numbers, I truly think that you get what you pay for, and you pay people what they're worth. And from what I've saw, if we're moving forward with this, I would be comfortable with the 190 to 200 range. I honestly think that our last city manager was underpaid for them for, the services that were expected here.
We have a consensus on that. I think three people.
Commissioner Brandemar, did you have any?
185 to 200.
Okay, thank you.
I think the consensus was 190 to 2. It was because it was 3. Oh, does that have to be 3 or 4?
Well, it's 3, no, it doesn't need to be 4.
No,
Okay.
you make the fourth.
No,
It doesn't need to be, you don't need 4 people to pick the number, but the majority want that range of 190 to 200. That's what the offer would start out. It's a nice number. It's not condensed, so it's not too broad.
Okay. Any other issues that we need to discuss now with regard to contract?
Again, is the commission, do you want to have the mayor as the point person with me, or just me doing it by myself and then dealing with all 5 of you?
I thought we were each going to be emailing you.
You are. You are.
Okay, perfect.
So
it's-
I'll
But
just do
no.
it I'll do it alone with communicating with each one of you,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
Okay,
That's fine.
that's fine.
What is?
It's a group decision, so I think it's
Right.
important that we're all involved, so.
Can we do a date certain for the, or not award of the contract, but the presentation of the contract? Or the, what do you call it?
I don't know how
Completion
you-
of the contract?
You could, but I don't know how you do that until we've concluded negotiations. Then you say, now I've got something, this is what, and again, the way the charter is written, when you're authorized to execute the contract after a public hearing. So you can use the 26th, or you can, if I come back and say, I've got a contract you're all happy with, and she is, and you can set the public hearing at a different date, as long as there's 5 days' notice.
From your experience, Tom, how long does it take to really negotiate with
It's-
2 parties kind of
I've
know
done
each
several of them, it's taken about 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
It's right before the next meeting. It's right after the next
I mean,
meeting.
so you could tentatively set it for the 26th. We could advertise it, just so it's prepared.
We can
And
always
if
withdraw
it doesn't
it.
get done, it could be withdrawn, we lose the advertising money, which is not that much, but at least you'd have a date.
Okay, so there's no
I
point
think
in really
it's-
doing a special meeting then if it's going to fall then. But if we have it advertised, at least we have all the chickens in a row so we can pull the trigger on it.
Yes, so the public would know, they'd be able to come here for that public hearing. You'd set a piece of the agenda for that, maybe early in the agenda, and then move on from then. We should know by that period of time if we're going to get a contract, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take
Does that work
much.
for everyone?
Put it on the next agenda, advertise.
A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Oh,
What?
Here we go again.
All right, get all the birds in the bush, we're ready to go.
The chickens in a row.
Ducks in a row. I thought it was ducks in a row.
Ducks in a row, chickens in a chicken house.
Get all the chickens and the eggs and the ducks ready. Let's do this.
okay. Is she still out there? Because I have some
Yeah, she's
questions.
still out there.
Okay.
On the couch.
Ew.
Don't tell her.
We need new couches. I'm sorry.
You know,
Yes,
things.
she is still here if anyone would
Like
like to go
leather.
out and speak to her, has any questions or concerns of any kind.
Did you want to bring her back, Ms. James? She's,
No, I can go and talk to her.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean,
Okay.
since we have a consensus.
So, do we have anything further to discuss here?
Again, what I'm going to probably put into this, just so everybody is comfortable with it, it'll be the car allowance type of thing, the cell phone allowance, the same hours and for vacation, sick leave, personal leave, everything that's been done before would
Standard.
remain the same. It'd be pretty standard. It's possible she will request more, and we'll know if she does.
Right.
I just want to take time to thank Renee. I don't know if we're going to see you again. This has been a long process, and you've been very patient and very professional. And It's been a joy working with you between the good and bad times, or our disagreements, and I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done for this city and where we're going. I really appreciate your dedication.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure to work with each of you, to get to know you. I know you love your city, and I always like to work with people who are trying to do the best thing for their city. You have a terrific city here. And I'll just tell you, my goal is always that I walk away and know that you're in better shape going forward, and I'm very hopeful about that. But it's been a pleasure to meet all of you. Everybody's been very kind and helpful in this process. There's many people who are behind the scenes, Christine and others, I could go on, that have really made things happen when we needed that to happen, so thank you very much. And I will stop in to check on you and to see all the wonderful things that's going on. As a matter of fact, Dania Beach is my place of shopping now these days. So if I'm in Broward, which I'm here all the time, I will be in your city and enjoying
Stop in.
the development. Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate that.
And I also want to say thank you for being available, because I'm sure all of us have had questions and have had to contact Renee to ask her things over this period of time. This is definitely not a done deal yet, obviously.
No, it's not.
So,
It's never done
and
till we
we
cross
may
the
have
finish
more
line.
questions, so
To the buzzer
I would
sounds.
anticipate that you will continue to be available to us as needed.
Sure. I loved all the sports analogies today, and that was fun to me. So no, we're not there yet till the buzzard sounds or the finish line or whatever that is, whatever analogy we want to use here. But thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Renee.
you, Renee.
Sure.
And with that, we are adjourned. I'm skipping lunch. Oh, no, please, with the weather, it was crazy.